I'm an oil rig worker. There's something lurking beneath the surface. My name is Marcus Hayes, and I've worked on offshore oil rigs for 15 years, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened on the Deepwater Horizon 3 last October. I'm breaking my silence now because people need to know the truth about what lurks beneath the waves in the Gulf of Mexico, far from the eyes of the world. The morning I arrived at the helipad in Louisiana, something felt different. The usual crowd of roughnecks waiting for transport seemed subdued. Whispering among themselves in hushed tones, I caught fragments of conversation about missing crew members and equipment failures. But in this business, rumours spread faster than oil on water. The helicopter ride to the rig took 2 hours. During the flight, I sat next to a greenhorn named Tommy Chen, fresh out of petroleum engineering school. His excitement was palpable, but I noticed the veteran workers avoided eye contact with him. They knew something I was about to learn. Platform, deep water, Horizon 3 stood like a metal fortress against the endless blue rising, 300 feet above the waves. As we descended onto the landing pad, I noticed immediately that something was wrong. The usual bustling activity was replaced by an eerie stillness. Only essential personnel moved about, and they did so quickly, as if afraid to linger in any one spot. The company man, Richard Blackwood, met us at the helipad. His usually confident demeanour was replaced by nervous energy, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept in days. "Welcome back, Marcus," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We've had some complications. Need you to take over. Drill floor 2 immediately." Complications was corporate speak for disaster, but I'd seen my share of those. "What kind of complications?" I asked, but Blackwood was already walking away, beckoning me to follow. "The previous driller, Stevens, he's no longer with us," he said over his shoulder. "Had to be airlifted, out 3 days ago. Medical emergency." I knew Stevens well. The man was built like a tank and had the constitution of an ox. In 10 years of working together, I'd never seen him take a sick day. "What kind of medical emergency?" I pressed, but Blackwood just shook his head and quickened his pace. The crew quarters were unusually quiet. Normally off-duty, workers would be playing cards, watching movies or sleeping, but the recreation room was empty. The only sound coming from a television, playing static. I found my bunk and discovered Stevens's belongings were still there, abandoned in haste. Among his things, I found a notebook filled with increasingly frantic entries. The first entries were routine, drilling, depths, pressure readings, equipment, maintenance logs. But starting 2 weeks ago, the tone changed. Stevens wrote about unusual vibrations coming from the drill string frequencies that didn't match any geological formation he'd encountered. The drill had hit something at 20,000 feet, something that shouldn't exist according to the geological surveys. Day 8. Stevens had written, "The vibrations are getting stronger." Johnson, from the night shift, claims he heard. Voices in the drill pipe told him to lay off the caffeine, but I heard them too during my shift, like whispers in a language that hurts to hear. Company says, "Keep drilling." Day 10. Lost another drill bit today, 3rd one this week. When we pulled it up, the metal was corroded, as if it had been down there for decades, not days. The corrosion pattern looked almost organic, like something had been eating it. Blackwood says it's a new type of rock formation. I've been doing this for 20 years. That's no rock formation. Day 12. 3 more men requested transfers today. Night shift is down to skeleton crew. The voices are getting louder. Sometimes I think I understand them, but when I try to remember what they said, my nose starts bleeding. Sarah from the lab analysed the fluid samples from the borehole. She locked herself in her quarters afterwards and won't tell anyone what she found. Managed to see her report before Blackwood classified it. The organic compounds don't match anything in the database. Some of the molecular structures shouldn't even be stable at surface pressure. The final entry was barely legible, scrawled in shaking handwriting. Day 14. It's not oil down there. God help us, it's not oil. The drill broke through into something vast. The pressure gauges went crazy before failing completely. The fluid that came up, it moved with purpose. Stevens saw something in it, faces reaching hands, promises of things that can't be. We sealed the well, but it's too late. It knows we're here now. It's been waiting so long, and we finally knocked on its door. I closed the notebook, my hands trembling slightly. In all my years on rigs, I dealt with blowouts, fires, equipment failures, and every kind of natural disaster the ocean could throw at us. But this was different. This was deliberate concealment of something that defied explanation. I made my way to drill floor 2. The massive derrick towered above me, its steel frame creaking in the Gulf breeze. The drill crew was smaller than usual, just 4 men, where there should have been 8. They looked up as I approached, relief visible on their faces. Thank God you're here, Marcus said, Big Jake Morrison, the assistant driller. We've been running on fumes since Stevens left. The day crew won't come near this floor anymore. Say they get sick when they do. I looked at the drill readouts. We were at 24,000 feet deeper than we should have been for this field. The pressure readings were all wrong, fluctuating in patterns that made no geological sense. The mud returns showed traces of that same organic contamination Stevens had mentioned. When did you break through? I asked. 4 days ago, Jake replied, his voice low. But Marcus, we didn't break through into a pocket. The drill just suddenly dropped like it hit empty space. Dropped nearly 50 feet before we could stop it. And the sounds that came up, he trailed off, shaking his head. What sounds? I pressed. Like whale song. If whales could scream, one of the younger roughnecks interjected, his face pale despite the Gulf sun, and the fluid that came up, it glowed, faint green phosphorescence, like deep sea creatures, but it faded after a few minutes in the light. I ordered a full stop on drilling operations until I could review all the data. The crew seemed relieved quickly, securing the equipment and leaving the drill floor with unseemly haste. Alone with the massive machinery, I felt the vibrations they had described, a rhythmic pulsing that seemed to come from far below, travelling up through the drill string and into the platform itself. That night I couldn't sleep. The platform's usual sounds, the constant hum of generators, the crash of waves against the supports, the whistle of wind through the derrick were underlaid with something else, a subsonic thrumming that seemed to bypass my ears and resonate directly in my bones. At 3 a.m. I gave up on sleep and went to the lab. I needed to see Sarah's report for myself. The lab was locked, but my senior credentials got me in. The place was a mess, as if someone had left in a panic. Microscopes were still on specimens, abandoned on slides, and there on the central computer was the classified report. The header read, Anomalous Biological Matter Analysis Report, Confidential, Do Not Distribute. What followed was a detailed breakdown of the fluid samples from depth. The basic composition was petroleum-based, but there were structures within it that defied explanation. Complex proteins that shouldn't exist at those temperatures and pressures. Cellular structures that appeared to be both plant and animal. And most disturbing, DNA sequences that were readable but matched no known organism on Earth. Sarah's notes became increasingly frantic as the analysis progressed. Sample shows signs of active metabolism, despite extreme conditions, she wrote. When exposed to human blood during standard contamination, testing the organism showed immediate aggressive response, attempting to penetrate cellular walls. Recommend immediate quarantine procedures and cessation of all drilling activities. The final note, handwritten and taped to the monitor, simply read, It's not dead. It's been waiting. A sound behind me made me turn. Tommy Chen stood in the doorway, his face illuminated by the green glow of the computer screens. Couldn't sleep either, he said, Stepping into the lab, I've been having dreams, strange dreams. I noticed his hands were shaking. What kind of dreams? I asked. I'm swimming, he said, his voice distant. Swimming down through black water, deeper than anyone could go. And there's something down there, something vast. It's been sleeping for so long, but we woke it up. It's grateful, Marcus. It wants to thank us. His eyes, I realized with growing horror, were reflecting the lab lights with an unnatural green tinge, the same phosphorescence the crew had described in the fluid. Tommy, I said carefully, when did these dreams start? Right after I helped with the mud samples yesterday, he replied, touching his face as if feeling it for the first time. The stuff got on my gloves. Must have had a tear. I didn't notice. It burned at first, but then it felt warm, welcoming, like coming home. I backed toward the door, but Tommy moved with surprising speed, blocking my exit. Don't go, Marcus, he said, his voice now carrying harmonics that no human throat should produce. It wants to meet you. You're the senior man here. It respects hierarchy. It's been alone for so long, trapped under miles of rock and sediment, waiting for someone to drill deep enough. The lights in the lab flickered, and in the momentary darkness I saw that Tommy's exposed skin was riddled with thin phosphorescent veins like a road map drawn in pale green light. The contamination was spreading through him, changing him into something else. I grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and swung it at Tommy's head. He dodged with inhuman agility, but the heavy cylinder caught his shoulder, spinning him around. I didn't wait to see if he would recover, bolting from the lab and slamming the emergency lockdown button outside. Steel doors crashed down, sealing Tommy inside. His screams followed me down the corridor, but they weren't screams of pain. They were screams of ecstasy, of someone experiencing a pleasure too intense for the human mind to process. And underneath those screams, I heard other voices, countless others, welcoming their new brother into the fold. I ran to the communication room. My hands shook as I grabbed the radio. Mayday, Mayday, this is Deepwater Horizon 3. I broadcast on the emergency frequency. We have a code black situation. Biological contamination. Request immediate evacuation of all personnel. The radio crackled with static. Then a voice responded, but it wasn't from shore. It was Blackwood speaking from somewhere else on the rig. Stand down, Marcus, he said, his voice strangely calm. The situation is under control. Corporate has been informed. They're sending specialists. Like hell they are. I shot back. We need to evacuate now. The contamination is spreading. Chen is infected, possibly others. Chen is experiencing a transformation. Blackwood corrected his voice, taking on that same harmonic quality I'd heard from Tommy, as are several others. It's not a contamination, Marcus. It's an evolution. The company has known about the presence below for years. We've been trying to make contact, now we finally have. I dropped the radio as the implications hit me. This wasn't an accident. It was intentional. The company had deliberately drilled into something they knew was down there. Something alive, something waiting. The platform's lights flickered and went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in a red glow that made the shadows seem to writhe and dance. I could hear footsteps in the corridors, multiple sets moving with that same unnatural fluidity I'd seen in Tommy. I made my way to the equipment room, grabbing a survival suit and emergency beacon. If I could get to the lifeboats, I might have a chance. The company might own the rig, but international maritime law would force them to respond to a distress signal. The journey to the boat deck was the longest of my life. Every shadow could hide. One of the transformed, every sound might herald their approach. I passed the crew quarters and heard singing from inside, dozens of voices raised in harmonies that human vocal cords couldn't produce, singing in a language that predated human speech. Through a window, I glimpsed the drill floor. The wellhead was glowing now, pulsing with that sick green light, and rising from it like smoke, but more substantial, was a column of the fluid. It didn't disperse in the wind, but held its shape, reaching upward like a living thing. Where it touched the metal of the derrick, the steel began to corrode and transform, taking on organic patterns that hurt to look at. I reached the boat deck to find I wasn't alone. A handful of uninfected crew had had the same idea, including Big Jake and a few others I recognized. Their faces showed the same fear I felt, but also determination. "We're getting off this rig," Jake said, already working on launching the nearest lifeboat. "Whatever the company is playing with, I want no part of it." We worked frantically to prepare the boat, but our time had run out. The transformed crew emerged from the superstructure, moving in perfect synchronization. Their faces were rapturous, eyes glowing with internal light, skin marked with the same phosphorescent veins I'd seen on Tommy. "Brothers," Blackwood called out, his voice carrying over the wind. "Don't flee from paradise. The Ancient One offers us immortality. Freedom from the flesh, unity with something greater than ourselves. All it asks is that we open ourselves to its gift." The Ancient One, I thought. They're calling it the Ancient One. Whatever was down there, it was old, older than human. Civilization, older than any life on Earth's surface, and we had disturbed its eons-long slumber. "Stay back," Jake warned, brandishing a wrench. "We're leaving, and you're not stopping us." "But why would we stop you?" Blackwood asked, spreading his arms wide. "You'll carry its gift to the world. Even now, microscopic fragments flow through the air. You breathe, settle on your skin, work their way into your bodies. The transformation is inevitable. We're simply the first to embrace it." Horror washed over me as I realized the truth. The contamination wasn't just in the fluid or on the infected. It was airborne, microscopic. We were all exposed, all carrying it. If we reached shore, we wouldn't be escaping, we'd be spreading it. Jake must have reached the same conclusion because he lowered the wrench, his face a mask of despair. "We're trapped," he said. "If we stay, we transform. If we leave, we doom everyone on shore." "Not everyone," I said, thinking fast. The contamination might be airborne here, but it came from extreme depth. It might not survive at surface pressure for long, might not survive in sunlight. If we can contain it to the rig, find a way to destroy it. "Destroy it." Blackwood laughed, the sound like grinding metal. "You would destroy paradise, Marcus. You would deny humanity its next evolutionary step. No matter, the Ancient One is patient. It has waited millions of years. It can wait a little longer, and when you finally accept its gift, you'll understand what you nearly threw away." The infected began to close in, not aggressively, but with the steady certainty of those who knew time was on their side. We backed against the lifeboat, trapped between transformation and the sea. That's when I noticed the flare gun in the emergency kit. In an industry built on extracting flammable materials from the earth fire was our greatest fear. The rig was equipped with sophisticated suppression systems, but those systems assumed the crew would be trying to put out fires, not start them. Jake saw where I was looking and nodded grimly. "The platform's got enough combustible material to burn for days," he said quietly. "Hot enough to sterilize everything, even our ancient friend's gift." The infected must have sensed our intent because their patient approach turned into a charge. We fought desperately, using whatever tools we could find to keep them at bay. But there were too many, and they were too strong. Their transformed bodies capable of feats no human could match. Just as they were about to overwhelm us, the platform shook a deep, resonant vibration that knocked everyone off their feet. The wellhead erupted not with oil or gas, but with a geyser of that phosphorescent fluid. It rose 100 feet into the air before falling back like rain coating everything in its ethereal glow. And in that geyser I saw it, the Ancient One, not its body. For I don't think it had a body, as we understand the term, but its presence, its consciousness, vast and alien and hungry. It had been trapped beneath the earth for geological ages, feeding on the transformed remains of prehistoric life that became oil waiting for something to drill deep enough to release it. The infected rose to their feet, arms raised in worship as the fluid rained down on them. Their transformation accelerated bodies, twisting into new configurations that served their master's purpose. Some sprouted additional limbs, others merged together into composite beings, all of them singing that terrible, beautiful song. I grabbed the flare gun and aimed it at the fuel storage tanks. One shot would turn the entire platform into an inferno. But before I could pull the trigger, a hand fell on my shoulder, not the twisted grasp of the infected, but a human hand, firm and desperate. It was Sarah, the lab tech. She looked haggard but uninfected, her eyes clear of that telltale glow. "Not yet," she gasped. "I've been working on something, a way to stop it, but I need more time." "We don't have time," Jake protested as the infected began to advance again. "It's now or never." Sarah pulled a vial from her pocket, filled with a clear liquid that seemed to repel the phosphorescent rain. "Synthetic antibodies," she explained quickly. "Based on extremophile bacteria that thrive at depth. It won't cure the infected, but it might neutralize the Ancient One's ability to spread." "Might isn't good enough," I said, but she was already moving, running toward the wellhead, with the vial held high. The infected moved to stop her, but their reverence for the geyser made them hesitate, unwilling to interfere with their master's manifestation. Sarah reached the wellhead and shattered the vial against it. The clear liquid mixed with the phosphorescent fluid, and the reaction was immediate. The geyser sputtered, its glow flickering like a dying light bulb. The infected screamed in unison, a sound of loss and rage that shattered windows throughout the platform. The Ancient One's presence recalled. I felt its consciousness pull back like a tide retreating down the wellbore toward the depths from which it came. But it wasn't dying, merely withdrawing, waiting for another opportunity. Now Sarah screamed, "Burn it all before it adapts." I fired the flare gun. The projectile arced through the rain-soaked air, trailing sparks. It struck the fuel tanks, and for a moment nothing happened. Then the world exploded into flame. The fire spread with terrifying speed, feeding on the combustible materials scattered throughout the platform. The infected, their bodies saturated with the Ancient One's fluid, burned like candles, their screams merging into a single agonized wail. We ran for the lifeboats as the platform became an inferno. Jake and the remaining uninfected crew worked frantically to launch the boats as explosions rocked the rig. Sarah stumbled, exhausted from her efforts, and I pulled her along the heat at our backs, growing unbearable. We made it to the boats just as the derrick collapsed, its metal frame twisting and melting in the intense heat. The platform listed to one side, and we cast off, rowing desperately to get clear before the whole structure went down. From the safety of the open water, we watched Deepwater Horizon 3 burn. The fire reached down into the wellbore, following the trail of contamination, sealing the breach with molten metal and ash. The Ancient One's screams, transmitted through the water itself, sent whales fleeing and killed fish for miles around. It took 6 hours for the Coast Guard to reach us. By then, the platform had collapsed into the sea, taking with it all evidence of what had transpired. The official report would blame equipment failure and human error. The company would pay fines, make settlements, and quietly shut down operations in that area. But I know the truth. The Ancient One is still down there, wounded but not dead, waiting at depths no human was meant to explore. And sometimes, in the small hours of the night, I hear its whispers in the crash of waves, promising wonders beyond human comprehension, if only we would drill deep enough to release it once more. Sarah and I were debriefed by men in black suits who made it clear that our silence was not a request, but a requirement. The other survivors were given similar warnings. We were compensated generously for our trauma and our discretion, but no amount of money can erase the memories of what we saw, what we nearly unleashed upon the world. I left the oil industry after that, moved inland as far as I could get from any ocean. But even here, I sometimes feel vibrations in the ground, rhythmic pulsings that remind me of that terrible thrumming from the drill string the Ancient One has siblings, I think buried in deposits around the world, waiting for humanity's endless thirst for oil to dig deep enough to find them. So when you fill your gas tank, when you use petroleum products, remember that what we pump from the earth isn't always the remains of ancient forests and prehistoric seas. Sometimes it's the blood of things that should have stayed buried, things that wait in the darkness below, dreaming of the day they will rise again. And on still nights, when the wind is just right, I swear I can smell the sea, and with it a faint phosphorescent glow that makes my scars ache. The scars I never told the doctors about, the ones that trace delicate patterns just beneath my skin. They don't glow yet, but sometimes I feel them pulse in rhythm with something far below, something patient, something waiting. Sarah calls sometimes. We don't talk about what happened, but I can hear it in her voice, the same fear that gnaws at me. She says she's developed more of her synthetic antibodies, keeps them in her refrigerator, just in case. She says the dreams are getting stronger, that she sees vast cities beneath the ocean floor, populated by things that used to be human. Sarah calls sometimes. We don't talk about what happened, but I can hear it in her voice, the same fear that gnaws at me. She says she's developed more of her synthetic antibodies, keeps them in her refrigerator, just in case. She says the dreams are getting stronger, that she sees vast cities beneath the ocean floor, populated by things that used to be human. The company still drills, of course. They've just gotten better at hiding the anomalies, better at containing the breaches. But each time we punch a hole in the Earth's crust, we risk awakening something that should stay sleeping. The Ancient Ones aren't malevolent exactly. They're just so utterly alien that their very existence is antithetical to human life as we know it. I've spent years researching, digging through obscure texts and classified reports. The pattern is there if you know where to look. Oil rigs that vanish without a trace. Coastal towns where the entire population disappears overnight. Deep sea research vessels that return with crews who no longer need to breathe air. We're not the first to encounter these things, and we won't be the last. The petroleum age is ending, they say. Alternative energy will save us from climate change. But I know the real reason the smart money is pulling out of deep water. Drilling. They've seen the reports, the ones that never make it to the public. They know what's down there, and they're terrified of what happens when we finally drill too deep. But human greed is stronger than fear. Someone somewhere will always be willing to risk everything for the promise of wealth. And when they do, when they finally breach the deepest chambers where the Ancient Ones sleep, God help us all. I write this account as a warning, though I know it will be dismissed as fiction. The truth is too terrible for most people to accept. We tell ourselves that we're the dominant species on this planet, that we've conquered nature and bent it to our will, but we're not even alone in our own bodies, let alone on Earth. Every time I shower, I check my skin for signs of phosphorescence. Every time I cut myself, I examine the blood for any trace of that alien glow. So far, I've been lucky, or perhaps the Ancient One is simply biding its time, waiting for the perfect moment to complete my transformation. The nightmares are the worst part. In them, I'm back on the rig, but instead of fighting the infection, I embrace it. I feel myself changing, evolving into something that can survive in the crushing depths, that can commune with intelligences older than the solar system. And the terrible thing is, in the dreams, I'm happy, I'm complete, in a way I've never been, as a mere human. I've made my peace with what's coming, whether it's next year or next decade. Humanity will eventually make contact with the Ancient Ones again. And when we do, we'll face a choice: resist and be destroyed, or surrender and be transformed into something unrecognizable. Either way, the age of mankind as we know it is drawing to a close. Sometimes I think about going back to the coast, standing on a beach at night, and walking into the waves, ending things on my own terms before the change can take me. But then I remember Sarah's eyes, the determination in them, as she ran toward almost certain death to buy us a chance. I owe it to her, to Jake, to all the others who died on that rig to bear witness, to warn others, even if they don't believe me. The oil industry has a saying, roughnecks pride themselves on going where others won't, doing what others can't. We drill through miles of rock and sediment, brave explosions and blowouts, all to extract the black gold that powers our civilization. But we never asked ourselves what else might be down there in the darkness, what might be waiting for us to drill just a little bit deeper. Now I know, and that knowledge has destroyed any peace I might have found in ignorance. Every time I see a gas station, every time I smell petroleum fumes, I'm transported back to that burning platform, to the moment when I looked into the geyser and saw something looking back, something that recognized me, marked me, claimed me as its own. The Ancient One is patient. It has waited for millions of years. It can wait a little longer, but its patience isn't infinite, and humanity's curiosity is insatiable. One day, someone will drill into another pocket of that phosphorescent hell, and this time we might not be so lucky. This time there might not be anyone like Sarah to find a solution, or anyone like me willing to burn it all down rather than let it spread. So I wait and I watch and I write, hoping that somehow these words will find their way to someone who can make a difference, someone who can stop the drilling before it's too late. But deep down, I know it's futile. The Ancient Ones have woven themselves into the very foundation of our modern world. We've built our entire civilization on their fossilized blood, and now they're waking up. The next time you hear about an oil rig accident, a platform lost with all hands, don't believe the official story. The truth is down there in the depths, waiting to rise. And when it does, when the Ancient Ones finally emerge from their submarine prisons, remember that we were warned. We had a chance to stop, to leave them sleeping, but we were too greedy, too proud, too human to listen. My name is Marcus Hayes. I'm a former oil rig worker, and I've seen what lurks beneath the surface. It's not oil down there, not anymore. It's something far older, far stranger, and far more dangerous than anything we were prepared for. And it's only a matter of time before it claims us all. The scars on my skin have started to glow faintly, only visible in complete darkness, but getting brighter each night. I don't have much time left. Soon the transformation will begin, and Marcus Hayes will cease to exist, replaced by something that serves the Ancient One's purposes. But until that moment comes, I'll keep writing, keep warning, keep fighting. The whispers that promise such beautiful oblivion, because that's what humans do. We fight against the darkness, even when we know we can't win. We rage against the dying of the light, even as we feel ourselves beginning to glow with an alien phosphorescence. The Ancient One is stirring in its deep places. Its children multiply in the shadows between molecules. Its song echoes in the spaces between thoughts. And somewhere on another rig, another crew is drilling down, down, down toward a revelation that will transform or destroy us all. God help them, God help us all, because the oil age is ending, but not in the way anyone expected. It's ending because what we thought was oil is waking up, and it's hungry, and it's been waiting so very, very long to meet us properly. Welcome to the future. It glows in the dark, and it sings so beautifully you'll beg to join its choir, even as your humanity dissolves like sugar in the rain. This is Marcus Hayes signing off. May you never have to see what I've seen. May you never have to choose between your humanity and your survival. And may you never, ever drill too deep.